Hello and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering EDH deck tech idea. Today we are taking a look at Ureni of the Unwritten. It is a 7 mana 7/7 flying trample Temur commander with an unbelievable powerful ETB and attack trigger. Because whenever it enters or attacks, look at the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a dragon creature card from among them onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. It clearly reads from its triggered ability that this is a dragon commander who wants to be rammed out as fast as possible to accelerate and hit other dragons with its ETB and also attack trigger to simply overwhelm your opponents in the air. As I've just said, we need to ramp him out, so we play Sky Shroud Claim, a 4 mana sorcery, search your library for up to 2 forest cards, put them onto the battlefield and then shuffle. As we are in blue, we also play Growth Spiral, a 2 mana instant, draw a card, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. We also play Planar Genesis, a 2 mana instant, look at the top 4 cards of your library, you may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't, put a card from among them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Another card that replaces itself is Explore, a 2 mana sorcery, you may play an additional land this turn and you draw a card. As we are a Dragon Tribal deck, we play Encroaching Dragonstorm, a 4 mana enchantment, and when this enchantment enters, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. Due to us cheating out dragons, its second trigger can also be helpful to accelerate later. When a dragon you control enters, return this enchantment to its owner's hand. One of the few mana rocks that we play in this deck is Heirloom, a 2 mana artifact, and you can tap it to add 1 mana in any color, spend this mana only to cast creature spells. Furthermore, it can also be used as Cardadvantage because you can tap it and until end of turn target creature you control with power 4 or greater gains trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. While we accelerate our mana base, we want to commit powerful enchantments to the battlefield that will help us later on with our dragon army. So we play Garruk's Uprising, a 3 mana enchantment, and when it enters, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. It also gives all of your creatures trample, and whenever a creature you control with power 4 or greater enters, draw a card. We continue with more card advantage by Kindred Discovery, a 5 mana enchantment, and as it enters, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. Probably the most important enchantment in this deck is Rhythm of the Wild, a 3 mana enchantment, creature spells you control can't be countered. And furthermore, non-token creatures you control have Riot, so they either enter with a +1/+1 counter or with haste. This enchantment will make Ureni uncountable, and this is a card that your opponents definitely want to counter. And once it resolves, you also let it enter with haste. We play Temur Ascendancy, a 3 mana enchantment, creatures you control have haste, and whenever a creature you control with power 4 or greater enters, you may draw a card. For even more repeatable card advantage, we play Breaching Dragonstorm, a 5 mana enchantment, and when this enchantment enters, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast it without paying its mana cost if that spell's mana value is 8 or less. If you don't, put that card into your hand. Which means that you basically spend 5 mana to get a Discover 8 trigger. And also, when a dragon you control enters, return this enchantment to its owner's hand. For either card advantage or haste, we play Frostcliff Siege, a 3 mana enchantment, and as it enters, choose Jeskai or Temur. If you choose Jeskai, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. If you choose Temur, creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample and haste. I have added 2 dragons to this deck that are not only there to beat your opponents down, but they can also provide some card advantage. So we play Coalescer, Scaled Singer, a 2 mana 1/4, and you may look at the top card of your library anytime. Furthermore, you may cast dragon spells from the top of your library. And in addition to that, we also play Whirlwind Stormbrood, a 5 mana 4/3 with flash, flying, and you may cast sorcery spells and dragon spells as though they had flash. You can also cast it for its sorcery side, Dynamic Soar, a 3 mana sorcery omen, to put 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. And now let's talk about the dragons that will win us the game. We play Scourge of Valkars, a 5 mana 4/4 with flying, and whenever it or another dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons you control. Furthermore, for 1 red mana, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. We play Old Gnarbone, a 7 mana 7/7 with flying, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. For even more mana advantage we play Ancient Copper Dragon, a 6 mana 6/5 with flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20. You create a number of treasure tokens equal to the result. Another player also developed a board of creatures, so we gotta keep that one in check with Balefire Dragon, a 7 mana 6/6 with flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. Let's ping down a few single targets with Dracozev, Maw of Flames, a 7 mana 7/7 with flying, and whenever it attacks it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each up to 2 other targets. If an opponent wants to pull off a Blasphemous Act, we play Wrathful Red Dragon, a 5 mana 5/5 with flying, and whenever a dragon you control is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target that isn't a dragon. You want to win more? You get it. We play Miram, Sentinel Worm, a 6 mana 6/6 with flying and Ward 2. Furthermore, whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of it, except the token isn't legendary if that dragon is legendary. And now the following cards will provide so much card advantage that you will definitely win by the next turn. We play Rishkar's Expertise, a 6 mana sorcery, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Furthermore, you may cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. We want to fire off Last March of the Ents, an 8 mana sorcery. This spell can't be countered, and draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control. Then you put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. This card is especially powerful as it can't be countered, and due to the fact that we have a bunch of haste enablers in this deck, we can cast this one in our first main and win in our combat step. We play Shamanic Revelation, a 5 mana sorcery, draw a card for each creature you control, and furthermore you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. As we play a bunch of powerful dragons, this can easily gain us a bunch of life, which will help us as we will be target number 1 at some point. We use Return of the Wild Speaker, a 5 mana instant with choose 1. Either draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. And a really cool card that came with the same precon is Become the Avalanche, a 6 mana sorcery, draw a card for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. Then creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. This can easily be one of your most powerful overrun effects in this deck, and along the way will also provide a bunch of card advantage, and will most likely find you enough counter spells that we also have in this deck to protect your game-winning combat step. Alright guys, these were a few cards that I will play in Ureni of the Unwritten. Let me know which cards you would add to the deck, which legendary creature I shall feature next. Make sure to check out my full deck list in the notes below, and then I would say see you in the next one. Goodbye guys.